Well, it's a real privilege for me to be introducing Jonathan Pryce this evening at Edgehill University. An Edgehill alumnus, he's an actor whose range and versatility is highly regarded and rightly praised, along with the gymnast-like ease with which he's glided from television to film to theatre and to musicals and back again. His work is mightily extensive, and a brief introduction such as this can only scratch the surface of a richly embroidered tapestry. His work across all the media is all-encompassing. I never did learn technical skills. So I'll go back to that great phrase. His work is mightily extensive, and a brief introduction like this can only scratch the surface of a richly embroidered tapestry. His work across all the media is all-encompassing, ongoing, and replete with awards, nominations, and recognitions of every kind. A full house of Tonys, Emmys, BAFTAs, Oscars, Oliviers, Golden Globes, Genies, RTSs, Biffers, you name it, and he's got one. A Tony Award in the 70s in the States for the play Comedians, and in the 90s for the role of the engineer in Saigon. An Olivier Award for his Hamlet in 1980, Golden Globes nominations for the HBO production Barbarians at the Gate, BAFTA Awards in the mid-80s for the movie Brazil, directed by Terry Gilliam, an Emmy nomination in 2010 for the role of Mr. Buxton in the BBC's Return to Cranford. Best Actor at the Cannes Film Festival in 1985 for his role as Lytton Strachey in the movie Carrington. Oscar nominations for the film Brazil in the mid-80s. A Genie Award in the mid-80s for Regeneration, which is an adaptation of the Pat Barker novel. That's just a snapshot of the pattern and the scale of critical acclaim that our guest this evening, Jonathan Pryce, has received and is still receiving. However, my own first impressions of Pryce, the actor, they're clouded by the passing of 4 decades and the haze of a 70s student existence. However, I still do recall viscerally the performance that he sculpted for Richard Eyre at the Nottingham Playhouse in 1975, playing Gettin Pryce in Trevor Griffith's Comedians. The character of Gettin Pryce is part skinhead, part politico, part copite, part philosopher. And Jonathan Pryce harnessed this weirdness into a performance that swiftly established Gettin Pryce as a signature character in contemporary political theatre, whilst also launching the dazzling career of that other Pryce, Jonathan. And more prosaically, it helped me get my Trevor Griffiths extended essay boxed off. North Welsh by birth and familiar with the city of Liverpool as a teenager, Jonathan Pryce, after art college, trained to be a teacher at Edgehill College, at this institution. A part in a college production led to a scholarship to RADA, and amongst his peers at RADA were such actors as Juliet Stevenson, Alan Rickman, Kenneth Branagh, and Fiona Shaw. The Northwest came calling again, and after RADA, the early 70s saw Jonathan Pryce at the Everyman Theatre in Liverpool, where his colleagues included Alison Steadman, Anthony Sher, and Julie Walters, and the in-house writers were Willie Russell, Alan Bleasdale, and John McGrath. And let's not forget that the stage design was by Bill Drummond, the future KLF frontman. Commenting on those years, Jonathan has said, "You had to be prepared for rock bands on stage, improvisation, European classics, anything. People were surprised when I later moved from straight drama into musicals, but I'd always sung at the Everyman." And his time at the Everyman took in a spell as artistic director when he introduced to the company actors such as Bill Nighy and Peter Postlethwaite. His screen performances began in the early 70s as well, in the TV sci-fi drama Doomwatch, while his film acting commenced with Voyage of the Damned in 1976 with Faye Dunaway. 40 films later, he is equally at home as a mendacious and menacing Bond villain, as in Tomorrow Never Knows, or as Juan Perón in the Madonna vehicle Evita, or as the patrician Governor Weatherby Swan in the Swash and Go series Pirates of the Caribbean. Jonathan Pryce has indeed Hollywood credentials galore. Yet one of his strengths as a screen actor is also his willingness to commit to the world of independent and innovative filmmaking. He's as closely associated with that as much as to the Hollywood big-budgeted movies. He's as familiar with the low-budget end as he is with the blockbuster film production end. And this support is well appreciated in the UK film industry, which I can vouch for. With the Monty Python film director Terry Gilliam, he has made 4 movies: the cult movie Brazil, and ever present on the critics' all-time best films list, The Adventures of Baron Munchausen. Well, maybe not so low budget, since the cost for that film spiraled to twice the original figure. There's also Gilliam's The Brothers Grimm, and the 4th Terry Gilliam film is the unfinished Don Quixote movie. His roles in such independent films as David Mamet's Glengarry Glen Ross, Boys in the Head, directed by Keith Fulton, and Gilly McKinnon's Regeneration, they all signal a will to experiment and a commitment to be challenged, a unique attribute in an actor who has such Hollywood associations. His stage and musical roles are equally commended. The engineer in the musical Saigon, Fagin in Oliver, and Henry Higgins in My Fair Lady, which in 2001 was nominated for 4 Laurence Olivier Awards. As with his film work, he often favours difficult material, such as the British premiere of Edward Albee's The Goat, or Who is Sylvia, where he played the man who has an affair with a farm animal. Most recently, he returned to the Everyman Theatre, the first time since the early 70s, in a production of Harold Pinter's The Caretaker, playing Davis, the loquacious tramp. He first appeared in The Caretaker at the National in 1981, when he took the role of Mick. But now, on the occasion of Edge Hill's 125th anniversary year, and for the first time in many a decade, Jonathan Pryce also returns to Edge Hill and supports the university in its celebrations. I'm sure you will have a multitude of questions to ask Jonathan about his wonderful career as one of the country's finest performers. But before you get your chance to do that, we have a showreel of some of his movies. We've got extracts from 4 of his movies: My Zinc Bed, Pirates of the Caribbean, De Lovely, and The Brothers Grimm. So, in those immortal words, roll VT.
Many other stories with interesting beginnings, but harder to find other stories which end well.
I'm sorry?
Surely you've kind of forgotten.
Oh, right, I see.
Your own words. Though maybe you write so many, you lose track. Victor Quinn.
Paul Peplow.
Of course. End well. In which sense? Meaning a story ends well, meaning happily for its subject? Or well, meaning in a way which satisfies the reader? Or did you intend both?
Both, I think. It was just a book review.
Drink?
No, thank you.
Of course. Wrong of me to ask. Well, as you know, I don't often agree to be interviewed.
It's kind of you.
Not at all.
Why are you normally so reclusive?
The notebook's coming out. How can you call me a recluse? I live in the center of London.
But you don't give interviews.
I'm not an exhibitionist, no. I'm a simple man. I took the liberty of ordering for you. I hope you don't mind.
And how did you know I'd refuse a drink?
I believe you belong to what cooks on television call the vulnerable groups. Remember, don't put brandy in this pudding. You endanger the vulnerable groups. Hello, my name is Paul. I'm an alcoholic. You see? I've studied the course myself.
It's not really a course.
No, a course implies an end. And in this case, there is no end. I'm interested in the meetings.
Are you? Why is that?
Paul, we can talk about anything you like, but first of all, you're going to have to concede the accuracy of my intelligence.
I go to meetings, yes. I've no idea how you know.
Well, England is a series of clubs. No club more celebrated, no club more socially advantageous than yours.
Obviously, you didn't go very often.
But you say what you think these meetings are.
A means. One means of people helping one another. I suppose we should start by discussing Flotilla. Its recent move to the stock market.
A transparent success. What's your question?
I was wondering what your motives were.
What do I answer? I did it for the money? People will say I'm greedy. I didn't do it for the money? They'll say I'm unworldly. I'm lying. Paul, you of all people must understand. The modern interview is a form as rigid and contrived as the 18th century gavotte.
Shall I just put he refused to answer?
What, meaning he's a prick? He agreed to the interview, then he refused to answer the questions.
Why of all people? Why did you say me, of all people?
A poet.
Ah.
I read poetry. I read yours. Love was the search, the wheel, the line, the open road, the steep incline, things speeding by, the final turn in view. Next, something disastrous, overwhelming, new.
Mr. Turner, good to see you again.
Good day, sir. I have your order. The blade is folded steel. That's gold filigree laid into the handle. If I may. Perfectly balanced. The tang is nearly the full width of the blade.
Impressive. Very impressive. And, Commodore Norrington's going to be very pleased with this. Do pass my compliments on to your master.
I shall. A craftsman is always pleased to hear his work is appreciated.
Elizabeth, you look absolutely stunning.
Will, so good to see you. I had a dream about you last night.
About me?
Elizabeth, is that entirely proper for you to...
About the day we met, do you remember?
How could I forget, Miss Swan?
Will, how many times must I ask you to call me Elizabeth?
At least once more, Miss Swan. As always.
There, see? At least the boy has a sense of propriety. Now, we really must be going. Very well.
You like his love affairs, you like the gun bears, you like...
This is wrong for Linda. She should sing a different part. Stop.
Is it me?
Oh, no, dear. It's backstairs and love affairs. It's too early for complications. Now, we're going to get ready for Paris. If you're not in Paris, I'll see you later. Come on, move along. You're doing beautifully, but then you always do. Remember, it's your story, too. It's a love story.
That's why I'm frightened.
Don't be. Have you ever seen a musical without a happy ending?
All right, then.
So, we've just heard Anything Goes, as if it's Cole's Declaration of Independence.
Independence from whom?
Never mind.
Don't argue with the director, love. Leave that to me. He's very strict.
She can't hear you.
I know.
Now, you're seeing Cole for the first time. We start to move towards him because there's a spirit in his eye. Go ahead. Move slowly. You'll be fine.
Perfect musical finale.
Don't worry. Never open on a ballad, never end on one either. Do you hear that playing?
Yes, we hear that playing.
Do you know who's playing?
No, who is that playing?
Well, it's Gabriel, Gabriel playing. Gabriel, Gabriel saying, will you be ready to go when I blow my horn? Oh, blow, Gabriel, blow. Go on and blow, Gabriel, blow. I've been a sinner, I've been a scamp, but now I'm willing to trim my lamp. So blow, Gabriel, blow.
Signore, with bounteous pleasure, I, Mercurio Cavalli, present to you the renowned, the legendary, the General Varin de l'Automne, the military commander of the Kingdom Westphalia, formerly known as S.
Exactly what am I enduring here? Can someone please tell me who gave birth to this?
It's Bavarian blood sausage with sauerkraut. I gutted the pig myself.
I bet you did.
Grimi, you're to have to stand trial for subterfuge, theft, buggery.
I'm sorry.
For which the minimum sentence is
Dead.
No. Hang on. That's absolutely unnecessary. Now, hang on. He's a writer. These country people, they believe things. We just have to do this just to test them for science.
And now I'd like to welcome Jonathan Pryce to the front for the Q&A.
Hello. I was very glad to see my agent's phone number at the end of that show, really. I don't have a lot to say. I don't remember being at Edge Hill, but they tell me I was. It was in the 60s. So if you were here in the 60s and you don't remember it. If you did, you weren't doing it right. Yes. So it's odd seeing some of those pieces of film. I didn't know what you were going to see, and intriguing. I'm not sure, but the bit you saw of my zinc bed, I think this is the suit, which is that's why it's why I'm dressed like a multimillionaire. And the piece from Pirates of the Caribbean. It's I don't know if you've seen the outtakes from that particular version of Pirates of the Caribbean, but that must have been about take 37, where Orlando Bloom was incapable of throwing the sword up in the air and catching it. But he managed it on one take. So there you go.
Well, I thought it was good that your agent had included an extract from one of your Terry Gilliam films.
Yes.
Because you seem to be one of his favourite actors, because you're in most of his films, I can recall.
Yeah. Well, I met Terry, it was 1980, I think it was, 79, 80, and he was casting Time Bandits. And I had just finished playing Hamlet for £89.50 a week at the Royal Court. And he offered me a role in Time Bandits, a role of the evil genius. And I was, two things. I was, one thing, really. I was absolutely broke and in debt. And I was offered another film at the same time, which you will all remember. It's called Loophole. No? Yeah. Anyway, I did Loophole, and it was a film that starred Albert Finney and Martin Sheen. And I remember I got the script and read it and couldn't see any value in the script at all, but was told that Albert Finney and Martin Sheen were doing it. So I thought there must be something in this that I'm not seeing. So I went to meet the director, he'd been a line producer, never directed a film before. We had a long talk about the film. I came out of there thinking, I still can't see any value in this film, but Albert Finney and Martin Sheen are doing it. So I said yes, I'd do it, and I ended up down at Bray Studios, and it was a story of a bank robbery that was conducted through the sewers. And we spent weeks in the mock-up of the sewers with little tame rats running about. And every day I'd get to work, get out the car, and the director was standing there in his waders, all ready to go down the sewers. And I'd say, "Oh, John, how's it going?" He'd say, "Well, John, it's going really well. Well, what can we expect? You know, we've got Albert Finney, we've got Martin Sheen, we've got yourself, we've got Alfie." I go to work, I come back the next day, get out the car, and, "John, how's it going?" "Oh, it's going really well, John. What can you expect? We've got Albert, we've got Martin, got yourself." And one day, I still couldn't understand why they were making this film, but I went into Martin Sheen's trailer, and this was he'd come off Apocalypse Now, and he was an extraordinary actor, and he was sitting in this trailer with his head in his hands. And I said, "Martin, can I ask you something? why are you doing this film? And he said, well, when I'd been a young man, I was an usher in the theatre with Albert Finney playing Luther, and I'd always wanted to work with him. And you traced the line down to everyone had said, oh, so-and-so's in it, well, I wanted to, and all traced back to Albert sitting on a big pot of money, doing it, yeah, for the art. Anyway, that was my meeting with Terry Gilliam, and he later asked me to do Brazil, and every time there was a difficult thing to do in Brazil, like the flying sequence or, mostly the flying sequences, he would say, this is your punishment for turning me down, for loophole. Revenge, yeah.
Well, we have 2 microphones in the hall, and all you need to do is put your hand up, I'll spot you, and then the mic will get to you within a number of seconds. There's a question here. Yeah.
First of all, it's absolutely awesome to have you here. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you very much.
I can't believe I'm here talking to you. It's wonderful.
Neither can I.
I'll give you my agent's number later on.
Can I ask a question first? Is there anybody here who was here with me? Okay, I can't lie then. All right.
Well, my question is, having heard such a fantastic introduction as we got tonight, are you ever surprised by your own success? If that's not a cheeky question.
I don't really think about it in those terms. I feel when I see certain bits of work I've done, I'm not proud of everything I've done. I've done things for all kinds of reasons, but there are things that I am proud of. And films like Brazil, Carrington, and I've enjoyed the work and especially enjoyed working with the actors I've worked with and some of the directors. Not all of them, John. We've got Albert, we've got Martin, we've got yourself. He's not a great director. But I look back and I've been kind of blessed in a way with the work I've been able to do, and I am very happy. Yeah.
I think that comes down to hard work.
Well, I enjoy the work, and I try to find something positive in most things I do, even if the film is going wrong somehow, it's a terrible, difficult location. I'll find something positive, because I think life's too short to sit there complaining and moaning. But although I can complain and moan, I tell you. But I think I've been blessed and lucky in a way. But I did have it's okay. It does go back to the very good start I had, which was in Liverpool at the Everyman. Yeah.
Hi. My question is about your role in Evita when you played Perón, and there was massive controversy from the Argentinian people about you using the balcony for the big speech, and I believe you did a press conference with the Argentinian Prime Minister about it. What was going through your head when you did that press conference?
It wasn't a press conference. We had to go and meet the president, and he'd already had a secret meeting with Madonna, where she'd been helicoptered in to wherever, and we were trying to get the use of the Casa Rosada, and they denied it for a long time, because to them it was a kind of shrine almost. And there were lots of other buildings we were trying to get access to that were being denied. So eventually we went to have this meeting with Menem, the president, and there was the president, a few other members of the government, Alan Parker, Madonna, Antonio, and myself, Antonio Banderas. And there was a lot of kind of social things you had to get through. His great thing was serving pizza and champagne. They were very famous for their pizza, so we had the pizza and champagne, we talked about all kinds of things. Very bizarre in that he held hands with his daughter all the way through the meeting, gazing into her eyes, and to such an extent that even Madonna, who's, you imagine, has seen and done everything, turned to me and said, "Can you believe what we're looking at?" Anyway, the meeting goes on, and eventually Mr. Cohen, who was in the government, said, we're thinking about giving you the Casa Rosada, and we're going to talk a bit more about it, but yeah, you can have it. And Alan Parker said, "What, we can have it?" "Yeah, you can have it next week." And then he was saying, "I don't know if we're ready for it because we haven't got the cameras." No, panic. "No, you can have it." And then he said, "Is there anything else you can't get, anywhere else you want to film?" And he said, "Well, there's the Opera House. Who you been talking to?" And he said the name, and then he goes out the room. We chat a bit more. He comes back in and says, "You got the Opera House. Is there anywhere else you need?" And I think it was some hotel or something, whatever, and they said, "We can't get in there." "Who are you talking to?" Goes out, comes back. "You got it. Is there anything else you want?" I said, "You couldn't get me a bigger suite at the Marriott, could you?" So.
Just a little sneaky one. Was Madonna awkward to work with?
Not at all, no.
Wait.
No, she was... I didn't find her awkward at all. I mean, she was tricky with hair and makeup, but there was a very strong costume designer who would insist she wore the hat. And she was very cooperative, worked very hard. It was the first time I'd ever gone to work in a helicopter, because we were helicoptered to a few locations to avoid the traffic.
But how did Alan Parker get on with Madonna?
How did he get on with her?
Because Alan Parker's quite a curmudgeonly...
Well, that's how he got on with her. He's very strong, authoritative, knows what he wants, has great respect from everybody in the crew because he's a great filmmaker. And there's no reason why she should muck about, but she desperately wanted to make that film and wanted to make it well, and she worked very hard. I remember when I first met her with Alan, and we were going to pre-record the soundtrack, and I met her there was a grand piano, and we were having piano rehearsals, but Alan introduced me to her and said that he tried to big me up. He thought, and he said, "Jonathan's, and Alan, I think, had just had either a knighthood or something," and I said, "You've got your knighthood, Alan," and he said, "Jonathan's got lots of awards. He's got Tonys and Olivier's, and we're all standing." Alan said to her, "What have you got?" And she said, "I got a lot of cash." So.
Okay, time for another question. There's one right at the front here. Put your hand up.
Hi. First of all, it's really lovely to meet you.
Thank you.
And I just wanted to ask, what was the atmosphere like working on the Pirates of the Caribbean?
The atmosphere?
Yeah.
Hot. It was, I think I had the best of it because I was in and out over the months that they were making it. I'd go in for 2 or 3 weeks, go back home for 4 weeks, back in for 2 or 3 weeks. So each time was like a bit of a working holiday for me. And I was like fresh meat coming into the set where people who'd been there for months and months on end were on their knees because they worked long hours every day. But the director, Gore Verbinski, he's a man who loves making films and he likes actors. And the working atmosphere was really very, very good. I'm sure Gore had his problems with production and with Disney. They were on his back all the time. But no, it was, I had a lot of fun. And I think most people did. I mean, you can't argue with going to work on a speedboat every day in the Caribbean. And that was very nice. And I was one of the few people who could actually take my wig off.
I was going to ask about the wig.
Yeah, because lots of them were all glued down and they couldn't take them off. But this thing had a life of its own and could be lifted off or winched off. Yeah.
Were the actors all very nice? Were they easy to work with?
Yeah, they were. Yeah, nobody. No. No, they were.
Not even Keith Richards.
Yeah. Sorry?
Not even Keith Richards.
Keith, my mate Keith, I didn't meet. No. He stood in front of me at the premiere of Pirates 3. Just about. Stood up. And during the screening of the film, I noticed that the great rock and roll icon put a blanket over his head and went to sleep on his wife's shoulder. So that was it.
Right, there's a question here, 5 or 6 rows back.
Hi, Jonathan.
Hello.
I've recently graduated with a degree in film and television production, and I hope to one day become an actor, a writer, and a director. As it's happening now. As somebody who's worked in the British film industry for some years, I'm curious to know what your opinion is on the abolishment of the UK Film Council, and what advice you have for those of us wanting to start a career in the ever-changing British film industry.
Well, it's. I tell you, it's going to be difficult. It is. It's difficult now, and it's only going to get worse. I think it's one of the first cuts that this government made was the Film Council, which I thought was a kind of cynical, headline-grabbing move to, you get all the publicity and the inevitable fallout from the famous stars and directors, which will make people, the other cuts maybe, might disappear. It's like a bad news day or something. But it is going to have an effect, quite a strong, terrible effect, because the difficulty of film finance is not necessarily getting Pirates of the Caribbean 4 made or, whatever, G.I. Joe 2, all those things. The 250 million plus films do seem to find finance because one assumes it's because the margins for profit are that much greater. The difficult films are going to be the $40, $50 million films, and the really difficult ones are going to be the $1, $2, $3 million films, because the potential for profit is that much less for investors. And there was a lot of investment coming in from hedge funds, people who had just so much money they didn't know what to do with it, and it was very glamorous to put it into film production. And that's drying up. So I don't know, at the moment I don't know what the answer is. It's never been that great, film production in this country.
Would it be worthwhile just going abroad? I was speaking to one of my previous lectures before, and he said to ask this question, so if David's about. But yeah, he said, is it worthwhile? I said, is it just worthwhile going to America? Is going straight to America like...
You'll probably have a better time. I don't know if you get a film made. But you'll have a nicer life. It's very difficult. I know young people are trying to get into the business now. What is happening a lot is that at a certain level, there's an ease with which people can make products, should we say, not necessarily films, that can be shown on the internet, and all that stuff goes on, which makes it harder. It's for people to make proper films, should we say. And I know people who, what they have to do is work for free for a long time. And I think it's very unfair. But it's the way, you do whatever you've got to do. I know there's a young guy who's a pop group put out word that for their new album, it was an independent group, invited young filmmakers to submit a video for free, and they could then use it or not. And it was publicity for the band and certainly publicity for the filmmaker. I think that's going to happen more and more. But I think, yeah, good luck.
Thank you.
This one.
Hello, Jonathan. My name's Tony Bostock. I was in Stanley Hall when you were a student many years ago. And
you promised me you'd never tell.
Right. Well, I know the part that Edgehill played in my career. I did a science course, and I look back in those days, and it was a terrific university, or college, teacher training college then. And I can remember some of the mentors I had and what help they gave me on my chosen career. I remember having a very inspirational guy called Jerry Dawson, who was a teacher of English for me. And I wondered what part, as we're celebrating 125 years of the university, what part Edgehill played in those days to get you onto the first tread of your chosen career?
Well, my mentor was Jerry Dawson, who was my drama tutor. It was him and Beryl Smith, as she was then. I think she became. And both those people, I didn't come here in order to be an actor or even a teacher. I just wanted to get away from home. I'd been to art school in North Wales when I was 16, and I did 2 years foundation course, and kind of drifted into teacher training college as part of, I know I want to do something, and this is an option at the moment. And I came here, all I was interested in was art. And you had to do a subsidiary course. And I was told by friends who'd been to college that the easiest course to do, that required the least amount of work, was the drama course. So I thought, that's for me. So that's how I started. But then, and then there weren't the facilities that there are now at all. I mean, there was the hall, Hale Hall, and I think that was it. And there were only 3 of us on the course. There was myself, there was a young woman, girl who was the same age as me, we were both 19, so, and a mature student. So our options for productions were pretty limited.
Excuse me, does the name David Johnson come to mind?
Who?
David Johnson.
What did he do?
He did drama with you. And
he did drama with me?
Yes, at some point, yes, and went to the Everyman, I think, with Jerry Dawson.
The name's very familiar, yeah. But he wasn't, unless he was in drag, he wasn't that one. David Johnson. Anyway, working with Jerry and Beryl, I became more and more interested in acting. And Jerry also ran Unity Theatre in Liverpool. And I started working with them, and I started working with an amateur group that Beryl was involved with a guy called Charles Alty. And first thing I did here was Romeo and Juliet. I played Benvolio, and I remember being absolutely petrified, and I could not remember one line to the next. But it fooled people. They were telling me they quite liked it. And while I was here, there was Kirby College, the girls' college down the road, put a notice up saying they wanted men for their production. So I reluctantly ran to Kirby, and I wasn't really that interested in acting, but the fringe benefits were too good to resist. And so I was doing the production with them, and their tutor was a man called William Murray, who'd been an actor, and he'd been to RADA, and he saw me act, and he said, "Have you ever thought of being an actor?" And I hadn't, and I said no. And he said, well, I think you should, and I think you should go to RADA. And he sent off for the papers and coached me through 2 audition speeches. And I auditioned for RADA in Bristol, and RADA gave me a scholarship, so I went there. But it did all start with Jerry, definitely. I remember other people here. I remember the almost non-mentor man called Alan Bird, who was, he was an English teacher, and he was extraordinary. I remember when I first saw him, his extraordinary carved face he had, very handsome man. And he worked in Unity as well. And when I told Jerry and him that I'd got a scholarship to RADA, and they both said, don't do it. Alan Bird especially said, don't do it. He said, you should stick to teaching, and there's no life. So a few years later, I was here in Liverpool filming The Man from the Prue, playing a true story about the first man who was convicted for murder, who was then saved from the gallows. He was reprieved, first man to be reprieved. But the actor who played the judge who sentenced me to death was Alan Bird. And the irony did not pass me by, that he sat there with me in the dock and he put the little black cap on, and he was like saying, you will never be an actor, with his black cap on. He wasn't actually saying you'll never be an actor, he was just saying stick to teaching. There were other people who said you'll never be an actor.
Hello, Jonathan.
Hello, Martine, how are you?
Hello, how are you?
Very good, thanks.
Hey? We all know what inspires me the most. I mean, I've got all 44 of your movies or whatever, and, there's not a day that goes by that I don't watch you in some form.
I told my agent not to come tonight, but there you go.
I know. You can pay me later, love, it's all right. I just want to know what inspires you the most?
What inspires me?
Yeah.
People like you.
Oh, I'll pay you later.
I was inspired, in my first job, I say this a lot, but the Liverpool Everyman, under Alan Dosser, was the most incredible form of inspiration you could have as a young actor. And I've carried now nearly 40 years that sort of work ethic that we had at the Everyman. I just have a good time. But I'm very fortunate, but I've been fortunate to have good scripts and work with good people. And I enjoy it. So when I
excellent,
stop
thank you. You're excellent.
Thank you.
Question, just here at the front, this young man's been very, very patiently waiting there.
Hi.
Hello.
I just wanted to ask, you've obviously done a lot of work in both the theatre and in film. I just wanted to know if there's one that you prefer to do, and if so, why do you prefer to do that one?
I don't really have a preference. I think I've found in the past that when I'm doing a film and it gets a bit tedious, I think, oh, I wish I was in the theatre. And then as soon as I'm in the theatre, I think, oh God, I wish I was making a film and I could get home at night, all that stuff. But it's, to me, it's the same. I get the same impulses, creative impulses, with film and theatre. The major difference is that when you make a film, it's very much in other people's hands. You can be as good or as bad as you want to be, but it's down to the director and the editor and what happens to your performance, whether it even exists anymore, whether it stays in the film. I find in the theatre I'm much more in control. As what happens live that night it's down to me and my fellow actors, but you become, for that 2 or 3 hours, you're your own director, you're your own focus puller, editor. You can speed things up, slow things down, you can, move where you want to move. So that's the major difference, and you get kind of instant gratification from it.
Sorry, can I just ask as well, do you find one more challenging than the other, or does that just depend on the role that you take on within?
I suppose film is... I don't know if it's a challenge, but it's more because I know at some point I'm going to have to look at it, whereas and be judgmental. Whereas in theatre, what I like about theatre is it's there, you do it, it's experienced by everyone, and it's gone until the next night. But I like that sense of what happens in the moment. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Hi, Jonathan.
Hello. You've got lots of friends in tonight.
I was just wondering, one of the first films I ever saw you in was Haunted Honeymoon with Gene Wilder and Dom DeLuise. I was wondering if you had any memories of filming, any fun memories of filming.
I have lots of memories. It was a wonderful experience. I don't think it turned out to be that... Well, it wasn't bad. It's enjoyable. It's.
I like it.
Yeah, good. But it was just wonderful meeting Gene Wilder, and he was then married to Gilda Radner, and it was a very happy time, very entertaining time. We'd normally when you break for filming, you either go back to your dressing room or you go back to your trailer, would wait while they light the next scene. Whereas with this particular group of people, you'd you'd draw the chairs around in a circle, and you'd be entertained mostly by Dom DeLuise, and it was bliss. He did lots of sight gags. He was dressed up as the old lady. If you'd have lunch with him, he'd. I don't know if I've never told this story, so I don't know if it'll work with, but he'd get the bread roll as he's talking to you, and you'd see him open up the bread roll, take out a bit of the bread in the middle, and start putting powder on his face. Bread roll back. Things like that. And Gilda, great stories, about Saturday Night Live and all those times. And Gene Wilder is a really lovely, lovely man, and I still keep in touch with him. It's good, great times.
Thank you very much.
Up at the back, Mary, just the guy in the white.
Hi. Okay. My name is Jonathan Bradley, and I do film studies at this college. And what I wanted to ask was basically, you worked for great directors like Terry Gilliam, and you've done high-budget films like Pirates of the Caribbean and Sherlock Holmes. What do you, as an actor, expect from a director?
Respect. No, that was a joke. I think the best directors, obviously they will have their vision of the film, but the people I enjoy working with most are people who are more cooperative about the process and who are enablers. Terry, one of the really nice things about working with Terry is he didn't claim to know anything about acting. And he employed you, that was your job. You did the acting, he knew where to put the camera. And that process, especially Brazil over the 6 months of making that was a really creative time. And I think everybody on that film would say the same about him. The worst directors are those who claim they do know something about acting. A lot of them don't. It's a real surprise that they don't have any idea of the process an actor goes through. And you'll get some who will do take after take after take and ask you to, this doesn't happen very often, but there's one particular director, his name is Charles Shire, a film called The Affair of the Necklace. He had not a clue and would say, this is my first night shoot with him, and I did the scene. He said, it's good. Could you do it a little slower? Sure. So we do the scene again a little slower. Could you do it a bit faster? Yeah, do a bit faster. And this went on, take after take after take. And eventually I said, that's it, I'm not doing it anymore. I'm not a performing dog, whatever. And I had a long talk with him the next day, and he said, you can't do that. You're not going to get anything out of anybody. And things got a bit better, but you do get that a lot, that they know what they want to see, or they want to hear, but they haven't a clue how to achieve it. They know what they want as the end result. And that's a bit tedious, really.
But have you been tempted to direct yourself, or do you look upon that as blue-collar work?
No, I directed in the theatre, but that was 35 years ago, and I think working with the company that I put together at the time, which was Julie Walters and Bill Nye, Postlethwaite and Matthew Kelly. And from that day to this, I've never wanted to direct again, which says something. You can work it out for yourself. But film, I've often thought life's too short to direct. And also, there are films and filmmakers that I admire so much. I don't think I could do it as well as the people I really admire. So I don't want to put my 2 pence in. Fail.
Right at the back, Mary. Under there.
Hi. In the film like Glengarry Glen Ross, what was it like playing alongside such big names as Al Pacino and Kevin Spacey?
My name's longer. Well, Pacino I'd met, or Al, as I know him, I'd met when I was doing Comedians in New York. And so I knew him a bit before we started work. And I was and still am a fan of his. And I think Glengarry is some of the best work he's done on film, because he is a theatre actor at heart. And we rehearsed that film as if we were rehearsing a play. We rehearsed for 2.5 weeks. And I was doing Miss Saigon on Broadway when I was there to do that film. So I just had a few days free. But I did enjoy working with him. And also, again, during the setups in the restaurant, I didn't leave. I would sit with Pacino and we'd chat. And at the time, the press were doorstepping him because I think he just had a baby and nobody knew who the identity of the mother was. And he told me. And I was like, oh, don't tell me. They'll capture me, they'll torture me. I don't want to know. They'll get it out of me, I'll speak. Anyway, but no, it was a good, and Kevin was just Kevin then. He wasn't Kevin Spacey. He was a Broadway actor. And the irony is, I find it, that was the role I was offered. But because the office manager, but because I was doing Saigon, I didn't have the time to do it, so I played the customer. But I've just done the play, 3 or 4 years ago now, in the West End, playing Jack Lemmon's part, Shelley Levine. And it is a wonderful piece of writing. And I think that the play script, the original play script, differs quite a bit from there's no Alec Baldwin character on stage. But I think it's a really good film, and that filmmaker, James Foley, it's the best he's done.
Just here, second row.
Hi, I just want to ask, what was it like working with Pierce Brosnan?
Oh, sorry, I could hear the voice, but I couldn't see where it was coming from. Pierce is a delightful, charming man. Like him a lot. Odd thing was that we'd do the lineup for the scene before hair and makeup and wardrobe. And I'd be looking straight into his eyes. And then we'd come back to shoot the scene, and somehow I'd be going... somehow he'd get taller. But no, he's a nice guy, yeah. And I'd fun doing that film. It's Tomorrow Never Dies, by the way, not... you said Tomorrow Never Knows.
Oh, sorry. Well, I'm just revealing my Beatles knowledge.
Tomorrow, who knows? Yeah, that was fun to make. More fun I think the promotion of it, where the big premieres and where they spend a lot of money and you're treated lavishly. And I remember going we did the LA premiere, then I think it was this way round, then London, and then the Paris premiere was the next day, and 10 of us got on the private jet to go to Paris. And I was then still flashbacks to my socialism, was going, what is the point of this? Why are we on a private jet? Why wasting this money on a private jet? There are flights go every hour to Paris. This is ridiculous. And then we're coming into land at Le Bourget, and I looked out the window, and there was a fleet of BMWs lined up. And as the plane taxied, these cars all peeled off, James Bond fashion, and all lined up outside the plane. And then I went, yes! So.
Question over there. And we're getting near to the close, I'm afraid. It's getting on for 8. So we may have to make this the last one, I'm afraid.
Hello. Last year with drama at school, we went to see you perform The Caretaker, and we had to write some very boring essays for our exam, which we had to write about.
Only boring if you made them boring.
And we all failed, actually. We failed miserably. And we had to write how you portrayed the character of Davies. So I just thought I'd ask, how did you actually characterise when you are given a role to play? Because I'm sure.
How did I characterise?
How do you characterise in general when someone tells you the role?
Any character? Or that
any
one?
Character, yeah.
Why don't you read your essay out? Oh dear. It varies from play to play. I don't have any set method for working out a character. I've tended in the past not to have too many preconceptions about a character, because when you're working in the theatre, it's about cooperation with your fellow actors and the director. I tend not to learn it until I learn it as I'm doing it, which the older you get is proving more and more difficult. I just about knew The Caretaker by the time we came to open. I hadn't realised what a huge part it is, and now he never stops talking. And it's full of non sequiturs, and you repeat things, and it's hard. But I have found in the past that people who learn the role first, it makes it very difficult, because however much they've tried to learn it impersonally, there's some kind of rhythm and pattern that gets set. And at least when you're all carrying the script, you're all on the same page, and you're finding things out about each other at the same time. And more and more I find the text, if it's a good text, informs you about your character. And I find the one thing I like about rehearsals is you take note and listen to how the other characters talk to you and how they talk about you. And if you don't overindulge that, it's okay. If you do it too much, where you hold your own counsel and just listen to other people, it doesn't help the other person. But there's no real set method. But a lot of things as well that I find, if the text has attracted me in the first place, it's usually because I identify with something in it. And Caretaker, there were things I found very poignant and moving about it, and also I knew it could be very funny because I'd done it in 1980 with Warren Mitchell playing Davis. I'd played Mick. And interestingly, to me, not boringly, we'd recorded it first for television, obviously without an audience. And I played it very straight, Mick, very dark, very straight. And then we were invited to take it to the National Theatre to celebrate Pinter's 50th birthday. So they held the screening of the television until we'd finished in the theatre. So we re-rehearsed it for the theatre, still playing it straight. And then the very first preview, I sat down after, and I think it's practically the first thing I said was, "You remind me of my uncle's brother." Always on the move, that man. But I said it very straight and threatening. The audience fell about laughing. And it was a great lesson. The major lesson was not to play for laughs. And then I had to remember each night to play it without the expectancy of the laugh, which is tricky, but managed to do it, especially when they didn't laugh.
Could you just write all that out for me, then I can handle into it?
Well, I'm afraid we've run over slightly, and I'm getting the signal from the back that we're over time. So, very unfortunately, I have to say that our Q&A is over, and I think it's been a wonderfully entertaining and informative session covering Jonathan Pryce's journey through film, theatre and television over the past 30 to 40 years. And it's a wonderful testament to Edge Hill University that a talent such as Jonathan has gone out into the world and become one of the UK's most prominent and well-known performers. And I'm sure you'd like to give your appreciation for his visit this evening and such a wonderful Q&A. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.